Even
Right.
Zoom does it now. No, recording in progress.
I just noticed that now. Yeah.
It never did. It never did. Just
I know.
now with the
Yeah.
update. With the
Oh, the one that has the what do you call it, that shared view thing, immersive view.
well, I think I have immersive view. I haven't tested it out yet. But anyway, sorry, it's
Yeah,
recording.
me
Go ahead.
also. Yeah, me also. Because one of my cousins saying, "Yo, when our family gets together, let's use immersive views. We're all trying to get." Have you guys ever thought of using that for any of the like performances or any of the workshops?
That's an idea. It is an idea. I have to study the immersive view pa, but not every laptop is created equal, right?
No, that's
So
right. Right.
everybody gets the same updates.
Yeah. Anyway, so let's start. So hi. So this is I'm here with Nelsito Gomez. So we're
Oh,
here to talk about. So hello to my students. We're here to talk about theater. About what's it like to enter the theater world. Nelsito's here to share with you some tips for you guys who are thinking about joining the theater world either here and abroad. Um, what it's like. Again, our class here is about being a creative professional. So also, what does it mean to be a professional in this particular industry, in this particular field? So, Teacher Nell, thank you so much again for joining us tonight. So, first off, I have students again who are, um, theater arts majors. They're planning. What's the scene like? What's the situation like looking for them once they graduate later this year? If they want to enter into the local theater scene.
and this is in the now context,
Right.
correct?
Let's say right now with still in the
Oh
midst
well.
of the pandemic and whatnot.
What would I guess what would happen before for a lot of the younger actors when they would start out is as soon as you graduate, for example, let's say Blue Rep. Okay, let's use that as an example since Ateneo anyway, or
Yeah.
Tangalang Ateneo.
Yeah.
Those two companies, those university based companies, they after graduating, they just do the grind. They audition. They audition for if you're usually in Blue Rep, you will go and audition for like Atlantis and Repertory Philippines, Nine Works, Resorts World, the English musical sort of West End Broadway type. That at least that's the gene
Yeah.
of Silla Resorts World. I mean, that's the DNA.
Mhm.
It looks like Western Broadway. As opposed to Tanghalang Ateneo people, they'll go and audition for Tanghalang Filipino,
Yeah.
PETA, mostly
Yeah.
on more the plays side. But that's the natural progression. You go and then do the audition grind, audition nonstop until you land something. Now, I have no answer because I actually do not know where the young professionals go.
Mhm.
And it is a bit of it saddens me. I was thinking the other day that the 20 something year old actors, and when I say actors, that's all inclusive, girl, guy, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all one. Um, it this is the time in their lives that they should be doing the grind like I did when I was in my early 20s, like a lot of my batchmates did when we were in our early 20s. Non-stop auditions, doing 5 shows a year, with barely 2 weeks in between rehearsal process. Um, Even the feeling of stretching your last centavo to the next paycheck, which I think is so important
Mhm.
in the learning process, in the experience. It just builds so much character. All of that I feel is so necessary. That's stuff that we can't teach in school. It's just something that one has to go through, and it really saddens me that people are not getting that feeling now because everything is just stopped. I The best thing you can probably do right now as a young professional, examine the little theater companies that are doing stuff online. I think that's your best bet. I know that a lot of the college orgs are doing that. I know my college org back in because I'm a teacher in Mint. I teach theater arts in Mint, and we have a college org there, and we've been doing stuff like that. Same as Ateneo. I'm sure if you right now, I guess we cannot think monetarily because there's no big company that has done something in this time period that
Yeah.
produces money. So actually, to be honest with you, maybe it's just a shift of mindset right now. I mean, we will
Mm.
be back. The theater will
Yeah.
be back, matter of when. And right now, I think if you're a young actor coming out of college, and I know that you're probably bubbling and you wanna work so bad, but I think the best thing you can do is just further the learning, further the learning that you didn't get in college. So there's so many streamed shows online that you can learn from. There's so many bootleg. I know it's illegal, but there's so many. There's a wealth of knowledge, and right now, if you cannot do, you can watch and learn from the masters. Now, I'm not when I mean watch and learn, I don't mean textbook type. Watch the actual finished product and try to deduce for yourself
Mm.
what did they do and how did they make it work and how they achieve that. That's my best advice right now. Habang wala, 'di ba?
Yeah. Well, let's flash back a bit. Like if back, like let's say this is the time before COVID, before the pandemic. What would it have been like for a young actor who's starting out? For example, in going for auditions, how do they find auditions, casting calls? What kind of to do the legwork? What kind of you know uh, you know burning leather, as they say,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
they have to do to be able to find all these opportunities.
Well, now it's easier because of social media. So what I think, well, w- in normal circumstances, I guess, the answer would be that you go to each of the theater companies' social media pages and like them on
Mm.
Instagram, on Facebook, whatever. So, like Atlantis, the Atlantis page, Nine Works Theatricals, PETA, Tanghalang Filipino, like them all. Like them all, because more often than not, they will announce their casting calls there.
Mm.
And that's how you get the information.
Yeah.
And normally they'll write what you need to do. I mean, that's how casting calls are blasted out now.
Yeah. Any tips, for example, for someone who's about to go for their first few auditions and all that? If they're only used to auditioning, for example, in college orgs, is there a difference when they're starting to audition for these more professional orgs? Or even, for example, is there a difference between auditioning for PETA versus Atlantis or Nine Works, for example?
Well, not all auditions are created equal in that the demands of the audition are different. Um, Speaking from experience at Atlantis, having auditioned and been on the audition panel, on that side of the table, normally we have the musical of the show that we're doing, the musical, or well, actually, I was gonna say play, but we don't really audition for plays, just a musical. So
Mhm.
musical, and then more often than not, the open call requirements are 16 to 32 bars, but I know it's usually 16 bars. 16 bars of music
Mhm.
that is sort of related to the musical, but not the musical itself. Um, and you have to have you have to have sheet music prepared because when you enter the room, you give that to the repetitor, the person in the piano that is going to accompany you as you sing your audition. And then you bring your headshot and then your CV. And your CV, if you're a young professional, your CV, you can just put your experiences, your learning experiences. If you did any college or productions, put that in there as well. Don't be what you call it. Don't be disheartened because if you have no professional credits, that's fine. That's fine. That doesn't really matter. Ultimately, what matters is the 16 bars that you're gonna get when you go to the audition room. But that's
Well,
Atlantis. Everybody
right.
else has own. Some people don't mind using minus ones. Like
Mhm.
before, people could use minus ones in the CD or their iPod, things of which are obsolete now. USB now, I think, or your phone. Um, so it really depends. It really depends on some people will make you read sides right after sides meaning scenes. So it really depends on the theater company. But more often than not, the requirements are going to be there on the page,
Yeah.
on the announcement.
You were mentioning, for example, a while ago, like how many auditions you'd have to go through. If someone who wants to do this, let's say professionally, like they really want to make it their main job, and not just be something you do on the side or for fun, how many auditions do you think they would have to do? what other opportunities aside from the main ones, if they don't get in those, what could help sustain them but still be in that similar field?
Well, it's the advice that I give all the young actors: do anything and everything, because that's how you. Right now, you're not at the point in your career where you want to be. Oh, I want to
Yeah,
do that one. Oh, I want to do that one.
yeah,
No, just do it all. Just do it all. From My Fair Lady to Dear Evan Hansen, just do it all. Uh, because there's something that is unteachable that you can only get through the grind of doing all these shows, jumping from show to show. As soon as one show closes, you're in the rehearsal room for another show. Those are all valuable things. So my advice really is audition for everything.
hmm
You're bound to get one thing. um, you're bound to get one thing, just by sheer percentage of auditioning, you're bound to land one thing. uh if not, doing stuff for free is not entirely terrible, especially when you're starting out. Like college, I mean, certain college orgs, which
hmm
honestly, they some of the more interesting material do come from the college organizations like Dulang UP and Tanghalang Ateneo. So I mean, you'd have to work out economically how that's going to work for you.
yeah,
But some of my best, most fulfilling times in the theater have been with either a fringe company or Dulang UP. Those are not even the commercial, the mainstream stuff. It's more because they can take more risks because there's less at stake.
yeah.
Because it's not high stakes money. It's not commercial. That thing. But audition for anything and everything. You're bound to get into one thing, but don't be picky.
Mm. In terms of that, for example, you mentioned a while ago, like you have to sort of stretch every last peso. You have to stretch. How do you juggle the finances of that also? Like figure out if this job, because like with you guys, it's very it's time consuming basically to be part of a production. Schedules are you don't have so much control over your schedule. Unlike for example us, like my field is like graphic design or comics, where we just have to output something, and the process is up to us as long as we get it done. With you guys, it's their rehearsal times, performance times. It's very structured. How do you manage to sort of prioritize those things, and what advice can you give to a performer who wants to, I guess, sort of maximize their schedule in a way that stretches their finances in a good way?
Okay. I mean, you have to remember that the meter starts running on show one. The meter does not start running in rehearsals because rehearsal fees will never cover the amount that you put in. So when you're budgeting
Yeah,
in a project, uh, don't get discouraged by the rehearsal fee because the rehearsal fees are never commensurate to the rehearsal
so,
time. It never is. Um, but the shows are. The shows make up for it. So how you look at it is you for example in Atlantis, entry level usually, which is the ensemble, would probably get about 2,000 pesos for a 16 show run.
mhm.
Okay, and I'm going to pretend like I can think fast math right now. 2,000 times 16 is
32. Tama ba?
okay.
32,000. Tama. 16 times
I
2,
think
32.
so. You're right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wait, yeah, you're right. You're
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah, 32.
Uh,
Yeah.
okay, so that's 32,000. And then you bunch up the rehearsal fees. I think in Atlantis we get about, I forget the exact amount, but we get about 300 a day.
Mhm.
So you bunch up all the rehearsal fees
Yeah.
and bunch up all the show
The
fees
trophies.
and lump them in one amount.
Mm.
From that whole amount, that's how you manage your day.
Mm.
That's how, for transportation, for food, whatever. That's how you manage your day. Because if you try to itemize if you try to think the rehearsal fees, I'm gonna fit that. That's not gonna happen. It's not,
Yeah.
especially in our country where we take grabs and all of that. That's just not gonna happen. So lump up the entire fee and then break it down from there, your daily expenses, and then see how much you spend for a day and how much you can actually save. I guess that's the best way to look at it. Bring it together, because individually they don't look impressive, but and because it's also given to you piecemeal. It's never a
Lump
just
sum, yeah,
lump sum drop. I mean, because I'm a director, that's a different check altogether.
yeah,
But when I was an actor, of course, it's always you get it at
right.
the end of the weekend, or you get the rehearsal fee at the end of the week. So it doesn't look as impressive. It doesn't even feel very, you know, confidence boosting. But bunch them together, because that's the better way to look at it, and you can break it down from there. So that's how you stretch it. You have to think of it as a whole.
Yeah. In terms of like, if you're, so let's say you're in the midst of a show, how often, like, when should you start already figuring out, oh, I have to get a next show after this? Like, does it happen where you start auditioning?
I don't think
Yeah,
it's like it doesn't happen that how well. Again, we're talking in theory at
yeah,
this, because
right, right. Yeah, it's
theater.
like, yeah,
So yeah, right.
this is like back in the day. I mean, or hopefully
Back
it'll
in my
remember.
time.
Yeah.
uh, uh, but normally theater companies audition roughly at the top of the year.
Mm.
So that's January, February, March, those 3 months. So normally you would have plotted out your year.
So it's a seasonal thing. It's something you can sort of, yeah.
Flow. There's a flow to it. Sometimes people audition mid-year. There are mid-year shows for the year-ender shows. But more often than not, some people already audition from the top of the year.
Mm.
And normally, that question wouldn't even exist. At least for me, where, oh, I need to audition for next show. No, the next show's already planned.
Ah.
I'm coming in. So after this, I'm coming into this. Unless you didn't get into it, then you can figure yourself out from there. But normally, it's all laid out na, and you're just kind of jumping from show to show.
I see. So, for example, like for a young actor, for example, so there are certain seasons, like there's certain times of the year when, oh, this is where it's audition time going around, and then
Usually top
this.
of the year and mid-year. Usually, there are some rogue companies that will spring up some random audition here and there, but normally top of the year, mid-year.
So, yeah, so with all that, like thrown into, is this still a little bit on the side, or a different aspect of the industry for those? Because I have students who are also in the production side. Like, for example, I have some students who are into like sound design for theater, or
Okay.
or stage screen, all that. Do they go through a similar thing, or is how do they get into?
Internship, usually you can apply for each theater company. You can just send them your CV, ask them if you're accepting any if you're accepting interns or whatnot, and that's usually, at least how in Atlantis it works. You come in as an intern, and more often than not, you will. I mean, if we see you often enough and we like the way you work, you'll get absorbed
Mhm.
in the next production, and you'll be part of the payroll.
When it comes to, one thing we talk about in our class is also like the different paths you can take, where a lot of us, many graduates assume, oh, when I leave here, I'm going to be an employee. I'll try to, apply for a typical 9 to 5 kind of job. Of course, many of the fields in fine arts are usually freelancers, and I'm sure many actors fall under that,
Of course.
and of course, later on, some decide to be entrepreneurs. You start your own company, or you start your own group. Um, with like myself, like my wife, she's a ballet dancer, and with Ballet Philippines, their structure there is that the dancers are more like employees. They don't have to worry about auditioning per show. It's just more for the cast within.
Yeah.
In
Well,
theater,
because the requirements are a little harder, because ballet, everybody's at a certain level.
right,
It's the ballet. It's an institution. You
yeah,
train them from start to finish, so they're your core group, and you will always use
right,
them.
exactly,
Yeah, because not the training is really, really, really hard, and
right. So like for them, it's there's a little bit more job security in a way, but with you guys in theater, it's not like that. Like are there are no companies that have like in-house employed performers, or
I guess what you're referring to is a repertory company.
in a way, yeah, yeah,
The company is a stable of actors, and they just keep on rotating and rotating, like for like 5 shows.
yeah. So
I
it's
know
like it's
Repertory Philippines used to be like that, but nowadays, the only person, I think the only 2 companies that practice the repertory system are Tanghalang Filipino and PETA.
all right, yeah.
That's the only people I know.
Mm.
Everybody else, commercial ventures are usually, cattle
Yeah.
call anyone comes in. But I mean, each company has their go-to people. That's just a
Yeah.
natural thing. I mean, go-to people, who you just jive well working, but never a formal, like Ballet Philippines, not a formal stable of performers.
What's the journey like, for example, like you, when you start moving from being just a performer to being like a director or deciding to start out? How like, what's it been like for you, like your in your own personal experience?
Um, well, I mean, I'm not gonna say that being an actor and then becoming a director is the natural progression of
Yeah,
life.
yeah.
uh, it really just depends on you, I think. I don't. I mean, acting is
Um,
always be
yeah.
a
Or
big
maybe
deal.
a good question is like for those of my students, for example, like which of them who want to be actors, what kind of personality or what kind of goals would you have where that would be a path you want to take as opposed to you just really want to stick with the performing side? Like what
Sorry,
is
can
it
you repeat
that
the question
yeah.
one more time?
What for example, is there something how would they know whether like going to directing is something they would want to do? Is there a particular
It's
personality?
gonna bite at you. It's gonna
Yeah.
bite at. Uh, it's normally it's gonna kick you. It starts off as a little voice in your head, that says that, parang I don't agree with this scene the way it's being done. Parang this is not. Or you see an actor having a hard time, and then you realize, "What, I can actually help solve that man's or that girl's problem." Um, and little by little, it's that voice, and then little by little, the more you learn, the more it gets louder and louder and louder and louder until the point says, "Parang I need to do my own show." Because that normally that's how it starts. Some people are just actors through and through, which is fine. I think you there's a germ of a director in you when you know how to see the bigger picture of things. Because the actors just have to operate in I'm not diminishing the work of the actor. The work of the actor is very difficult, but they have to look at it scene per scene.
Mm.
They have to live the journey of it moment for moment, beat for beat, breath for breath. The director has to go in and out like a zoom in and zoom out lens, to be able to see the minuscule and also pull out and see the entire picture if it agrees in the world. So those are the natural things that come instinctively to a director. It's that ability and the voice in your head that says that, I think I can make you can if you're a problem solver, more often than not, you're a director. You have
Mm.
the ability to be a director because a lot of directing is problem solving.
Mm.
How to figure out the scene, what is it lacking, why does this actor not get the delivery of the line, or why does that table feel like it's not helping the scene, it's in the way, little stuff like that. Um, Also, if you're very comfortable talking to yourself, because more often than not when you're a director you're usually talking to yourself in your head in the behind the desk, and you're just like, yeah, so you have to be very comfortable with you must enjoy talking. I mean, not like have a conversation with, hey, how
Yeah,
you, but
yeah.
to be able to ping pong ideas with yourself is, if those things, if you I mean, I'm not listing concrete examples. I think anybody, people who are come to directing come to it from very different ways, but more often than not they have the roughly the same checklist.
Mm.
The critical voice in your head, the ability to look micro and macro, um, problem solving, and just being able to observe. That's another trait of it. Just being able to observe something and pick it apart.
Yeah, it's interesting you brought up the way that like for people who have an inclination towards directing that they want to solve problems and they're able to see I think I can do this a little better. It's desire for artistic control, I suppose.
That
Um,
too. That too. There's
yeah,
there's a I don't want to say OCD
yeah,
quality, but there's a certain level of obsession.
yeah.
There's a certain level of obsession that each director has. Some people are just really, dictators, and because they're just so obsessed about the product and it has to be a certain way. And there are people that are a bit more collaborative, yet still have a hold, but there is still there's still an obsession because ultimately the director has final say
Right.
in everything. He has the final authority. She is the final authority.
One of the big challenges we always have in our class is balancing. I mean, in this class especially, if it's about creative professional, we're trying to balance, of course, the desire to be an artist, where you want to express, particular ideas. I have a certain purpose, a higher purpose of my art. But at the same time, we want to be professional, and we always, in my class, we define it as it's not just that you make money at it. I mean, that's one part, but being professional is about, of course, you go deep into your art, but it's being reliable, that people can count on you, and it's being other centric, that you're doing it for basically someone else. The fact that you're professionals, that someone else is hiring you, commissioning you, paying you because they have a vision and you're there to help them with their vision. But at the same time, I have students who also, understandably so, will sometimes wonder, how do I reconcile that? Am I selling out? Is it, how do I still not get burnt out? In both, let's say, I'd like to ask about both in the performing and maybe the directorial side. What would you consider to be good ways to stay professional? What does being professional mean for an actor? What does being professional mean for a director?
Oh, well, to be honest with you, I think I can answer both at the same time.
Yeah.
Um, uh, Being a professional, I mean, for me, uh, being a professional is very simple. Do what you say.
Mm.
In rehearsals, you all sign a contract saying that in the rehearsal period, we're going to start from 11 and we're going to end at 6. So you show up before 11. That's doing as you've said. Uh, when you're an actor, there are things that are needed there are things that will be assumed that you do, which is research, learning your lines on time and all that. That is just doing as you're saying. So and same as the director, we do as we say. If you're gonna say it, then you have to follow through. And I think that's often not a lot of people, or people tend to skip that step a lot of the times. And for the young professionals here in your class, that's one thing, at least personally, that irks me so much, is when people do not follow through what they say. I feel that's very unprofessional. When you have ideas, or when you say, oh, I'm going to do this show, ganito, ganito, and you ask certain people to be involved in it, and then it just never sees the light of day.
Mm-hmm.
That's not doing anybody any favors. And I guess it's also connected to the doing it for the other.
Yeah.
Same thing. As soon as you say it, you have to realize that you're involving other people when you're saying it to other people, and you don't want to let them down. You know, quash their hopes or whatever. So yeah, my rule of thumb as a professional is always do what I say. If I didn't say it, then I'm not obliged to do it.
Mm.
If I didn't say it. Some people naman will assume something and say, well, I never said that, or we never agreed to that in the contract. So I guess the doing as we're saying is basically the same thing as what's written down in the contract. You follow through what's written down in the contract. Make sure all the things you need are in the contract. Address all the concerns that you feel you need before we work. I mean, that is essentially what a contract is, right?
Right.
It's between two people saying, before we get into this engagement, I need to know that I am protected. I get what I need to be able to do what we're going to do. The same thing as an actor. I need to be comfortable with everything in the stipulations before I begin to do my job. Meaning fee, rehearsal time, period. When you're gonna get paid, make sure those things are in the contract, and ask. There's nothing wrong with asking. Sometimes asking has a taboo attached to it now, because people will either gossip about you afterward and say, ay, nagtatanong siya ng bayad, o at kung kailan dapat yung kailan yung bigayan ng check, mga ganon. Don't fall for that. Don't fall for that guilt trip. That is your right to ask how much you're getting, and the environment of the place that you're working in, especially now in this post-COVID world we're living in. All the more do you need to ask what the environment is like, how safe it is. There's, because there are extra safety protocols
Right.
uh, that are in place already that need to be followed. So do as you say. Basically, that's my number one professional
And
mantra.
I'd like to go back to that because I think it's a great point you brought up about contracts. What sort of things like that, like what kind of paperwork should young professionals in the theater world, what should they make sure they always have? Are there certain terms, like you mentioned, for example, like payment terms, all that? Should they watch out for that? Maybe from experience that other people were taken advantage of because they ignored this or they let this go.
Well, I mean, watch out for any loopholes.
Mm,
I mean, you don't necessarily performing when you're getting a contract as an actor. I mean, you don't necessarily always have to have a lawyer look over it, um, because it's kind of straightforward. Always read force majeure because that's what got
mm,
everybody into trouble during COVID.
right.
Um, the shows that got canceled, no producer was liable to pay them cancellation fees because of force majeure, because
Mm.
COVID was an act of God, so to
God,
speak.
yeah.
Yeah. So always watch out for that. I mean, especially now we're all going to be looking at the force majeure.
Yep.
um, look at the cancellation fees in case of anything. How much are you entitled? Usually it's 25% of the whole fee in
Mm.
case of any kinds of cancellations. Um, what I think it's also important because when is always the testy waters where you know, we can get irritated. It's like, when am I gonna get paid?
Yeah.
So normally it should be said in the contract, at least from my experience, every last show of the weekend. So for example, you're doing Friday to Sunday, you get
Yeah.
paid for that weekend on the Sunday. That's the habit. And normally it's written down in your contract, including also rehearsal fees payable at the end of a week's rehearsal. So all of those things. So you have every right to speak up when that is not followed. When there is no date in the payment, that's scary because they can literally pay you anytime they please.
Mm.
So you need to make sure there's a timeline. If it's open ended, you're not legal.
No.
There's
Yeah, you have
nothing
no
that's
protection.
binding you, or sorry, binding them to pay you at a certain time. So make sure time. I mean, of course, I'm sure you debate on how much you're getting.
Right.
Also, yeah, we have to be very specific about if what you're getting is net or
Or
or,
gross, yeah. With
or
taxes and all
gross.
that.
That is also something that needs to be considered. So always ask net of taxes. Um, and that's about. I mean that what else I look out for in the contract. I mean that's pretty much it. The rest, like for example, what happens if you get sick
Mm.
and start on a show? Check if they can sue you.
Mm. Like a breach, if it's a
What
breach
are
of contract, yeah.
your contract? If you're late for a rehearsal, normally they'll put there that there is a penalty fee on your rehearsal fee, and I think after three, there's a penalty on your show. So um, watch out for those things. But again, like any contract, it's just formalizing the structure so you can be free to put that away and go into the room and create. But look over step by step those important things.
One issue that's come up a bit, like I had a student who was messaging me about he's involved with many college with one of the college orgs, theater orgs, and so we were talking about what kind of artist are you, purpose, and all that, and he was experienced a bit of a crisis, kind of going that I'm very passionate about my art, and also he does the directing side, and he said it came to a point where he started to wonder he was too strict because he got actors who were complaining that the environment became too toxic, but he said no, but the work has to be this good, and he's starting to reflect on that and maybe I should change that kind of thing. With my wife also, like even in the ballet world, there are some situations where she's had her co-dancers would say, there's some performance before where I wasn't sure if I was comfortable doing this, but it's part of the show. Are there situations in theater, because again there's so many things that they can ask you to do, it's not like in a job where this is your job description. How do you navigate as an actor those things? Are those things covered in contract? Are there like moral clauses? How do you make sure that are you able to draw a line? Whether what you're willing to do for performance for a job.
That's a little tricky because normally in the contract says so and so will
Mm,
perform as directed.
mm,
And that as directed can mean a million things, right? If the director tells you to strip down and do laps around the stage, you technically have to do it.
yeah,
So I think the best way to understand those things is know who the director is, know, and natural you will anyway, but know who the
yeah,
director is and know what the material is. Um, if you're doing hair and there's that act one finisher where they all take off their clothes as a form of rebellion, as a form of protest, you kind of have to set yourself up for the fact that you will have to take off your
yeah,
clothes. That will be asked from you. That's not going to come from
yeah,
Mars. I mean,
right,
really, it's in the show.
yeah.
If you don't feel comfortable about that, then talk to the director and see how that director is going to pull off a scene like that, and what the vision would be for. So I think the best, because I don't think that's ever going to change in the contract. You will perform the role as directed. That's an umbrella statement to cover everything.
Mhm.
I think the best way to avoid abuse of any kind is to know who your director is.
When it comes to um, just to shift gears a little bit,
Good.
I also had some students who were asking about things like I don't know if you have experience with this with agents because they were asking me, sir, like what if like for those also rather than going on from ourselves, be the one looking for jobs and all that. What is it? What's it like to have an agent? What's it take to get one? Is that
Tricky.
yeah,
Normally, theater artists never really have agents
mhm. It's more for
because
yeah,
it's a small business.
yeah,
The theater is a small industry, and um, I think it's just. I mean, you don't want. It's just practical, actually. You don't want somebody taking a cut from an already
it's mine.
not so nice paycheck. Uh, so no, normally you get an agent if you're doing TV work,
Right.
mainstream, as in mainstream stuff, because you're usually you get an amount that is substantial enough to pay your agent 20%. But don't, if you're an actor, don't get an agent. You can do it. You can manage it on your own. It's not a very difficult. Your career is not a very difficult career to manage. Believe me. Um, you don't need anybody taking a cut from a not so good paycheck already. Um, so no. Abroad is a different story because it's an industry.
Mm,
Sad to say, I don't think it's an industry here. In terms of priority,
yeah.
we don't have unions. We don't have abroad. You have the actors union, you have the directors union, you have the stage managers union, and as an actor, I know I have a cousin who's about to do a show in the West End actually, because the theater is coming back there in the UK. He has an agent, and they really do the rounds of the auditions. The agent sends his photo everywhere to casting agents. Yun pa, that's another thing that doesn't exist here. Casting
Okay.
agents. There's a whole casting directors. That's a whole different. I think it's in commercials that have
Mm,
casting directors, not so much the theater. So yeah, for an industry that I wouldn't recommend an agent now.
mm,
Um, Not because you're an actor starting out. It's because our industry is not where we're all in demand.
right.
So I wouldn't recommend an agent. You can manage your own career.
Shifting to that, like, since you brought it up, like your cousin who does abroad, who works abroad, who performs abroad. For those who are thinking about, what if I want to try to, take a shot at applying abroad, or looking for shows, what steps would they have to take, or what's something they could do? Let's say they've already wet their feet a little bit here in the local scene, and they go, oh, maybe I want to try,
Well, I mean, it's not as simple as that because of citizenship.
mm,
Uh, you have to I think that it's not as simple as
yeah, yeah,
I-
yeah,
I've done everything I wanted to do in this country. Time to go abroad. No, it's not as simple as that.
yeah,
Some people take the school route. They study in like RADA, or in the States it would be, I don't know, Lambda, and they study there. And because at the end of their time there, usually there's a culminating show, and agents are
Mm.
invited to see the crop. So your natural progression works. It makes sense. People can see you and say, "Oh, this is a promising talent." So some people take the educational route. Others take the show that keeps on giving, Miss Saigon. That's usually the springboard for anybody.
Mm.
Rachel Ango, my cousin, John Briones, you name it, Lea Salonga. It's been a springboard for everybody. They needed Asians, so they had to come here well prepared. If they're gonna cast somebody, all your papers are gonna be taken care of, and then when you get there, ikaw na bahala.
Mm.
After you're done with that show, are you gonna find a way to get an agent and do all of that? And that's what my cousin did, and now at least he's built a sort of steady career enough to stay there with his wife, and now he's gonna be in the West End. So great. But it's not as simple as, oh, I want to work abroad and I will. I don't know if it's the same in other industries, but for the theater industry, definitely not. Because remember, we are in this country, you can be a big fish in a small pond,
Mm.
but the second you're out there, it's a big pond,
Mm.
and with probably bigger fish. So, uh, so it's not as simple as that. Usually, it's them coming over here to get people.
So shifting back to, we started talking about, what things were like before the pandemic, and we're hoping that things will kind of go back to those days again in the next few months, next few years. But let's say in the immediate future, like now 2021, even let's say early 2022, what advice can you give, for example, for a young performer, or even a budding director who wants to do something in the meantime to prepare? Aside, you said, of course, learning is one, but in terms of, let's say, marketing themselves or building some kind of name.
Um, I guess I can give an example from what I'm doing. Yeah, what I'm doing now. We need to take out our preconceived notion hat, the hat that says that theater is a certain way. We have to
Mm.
take that out first, because it's not. The fact that we cannot gather and we cannot have a communal experience all together. Communal experience and all together is the same thing. But anyways, we cannot have a communal experience. Uh, that just cancels out any live event, any theatrical event. So there are principles that film can help an awful lot. There are principles that we can learn from, that we can take from, that can help the theater industry. Um, and I guess the best advice I can give people who still want to create in this time is, it doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be a cast of 10. It doesn't have to be a cast of 20. It can be two people in a space, and you can shoot it. It can be original material. You can either do it on Zoom, or if it's a small enough team, just bring people into a house, shoot it there, release it. There are many ticketing platforms like Ticket to Me and KTX that are willing to. I would recommend Ticket to Me because they're a bit more accessible in terms of the agreements. You
Mm.
don't have to pay them anything. They just add 50 pesos on top of your ticketing price, and that's their cut na. So you can do that. You can shoot original material. We've My small company has tried a lot of things already. We tried to do radio dramas, put it out on Spotify. Um, I guess the main point I'm getting at is, it doesn't have to be big for you to create. If you have something to say, it doesn't have to take 50 people. It can be five, and it's safe. Um, yeah, that's the best advice that I could give now. Zoom stuff still works. I know we're all at a certain point Zoom fatigue, but yeah, it doesn't have to be big. um, I'm a bit, I guess, I'm inclined to support the people that are trying to do something now, as opposed to the people sitting and waiting.
Mm.
Because it's not the fact that they have the luxury to sit and wait, which is totally fine, but it's more of, I don't know. Maybe it's just me being defiant.
Yeah. Because there
Theater
was
is
a yeah, there
yeah.
was that article that came out before. Right? I remember reading it there where someone in the US, I think a theater performer, saying that his stance was wait it out. Let's wait till live theater comes back because anything we do digitally might, people now they expect it to be free and expect they'll devalue, and so there's a lot of conversation about that. Whether should we wait it out or should we do something that is like this? It's not quite theater, it's fusion. Will it? So
Well, I err on the side of theater is a stubborn art form and will always try to find an audience. That's me.
yeah,
Uh, I don't know. I'm a die trying than just stand still and
yeah,
wait.
I agree.
I'm not the waiting kind. I'm also 30, so I have time on my side. The restlessness and the impatience.
Mm,
I know a lot of people that just want chill out and wait are usually like 50, 60, which is understandable.
yeah.
Uh, this might they all I mean there's also a factor in that we're not acknowledging that sometimes they might feel insecure about the mediums
Hmm.
because it does take a certain level of technological savviness
Yes.
need. So which is understandable. Let's not throw scoff at
This is
them
it.
and say,
Right.
not doing anything. No, there might be coming from an insecure place.
Yeah.
Uh, that there it's technology. I mean
Yeah.
this we all know how to bloody operate Zoom now and manage
Yeah.
garage pretty well and all these other things. So yeah,
Yeah, but so we've had teachers like even us in Ateneo who backed out last minute from some classes because I can't handle doing Zoom, distance learning, and all this, speaking, lecturing to blank screens, and all that. Um,
it's hard. I mean, I don't blame them also because there's nothing like looking at a student face
of
to
course.
face. And even I have my struggles when I'm at Mint, and there are certain days where it's like, man, part of the job as a teacher, as I'm sure you know, is not just teaching the lessons for the day or getting the point across, but inspiring people to want
Mm,
more. To I mean, we are essentially trying to teach people to fish, so
mm,
they can go on and fish some more on their own. That's the best thing that we can do. Not just hit them with concepts and all that, and they're like, "Right, teach you, done."
yeah,
No, they have to go. They'll go ahead and learn more on their own, away from us, and that's the fire that we keep on trying to light. And it's very hard. There are it's in this kind of non-immediate
mm,
response world that we're living in. We don't get the feedback. Sometimes we can't even require students to attend live sessions.
mhm, mhm.
So I get that part of it. I get that it's very hard to inspire. Um, but again, what are we gonna do? Are we gonna sit and wait, or are we gonna try?
Right. So just to wrap everything up, of the things that well, maybe second to the last thing, of the things when we do when let's say face to face is possible again, when live performance is possible again, of the stuff that you're experimenting with now, the things that we're trying, the things you see other people testing out, things like Kumu or Zoom musicals or YouTube or even performances on TikTok or whatnot. Which of these things do you think will become will stick around and be part fuse into
That's a good question. Actually, I have thought about this a couple of times. Um, I think there are a lot of broad meetings that can be done through Zoom. Like we don't always have to gather in a bloody coffee shop. I mean, especially in this country where you
yeah
just don't want to deal with the bloody traffic all the time.
yep yep
So there are some stuff that you can get done on Zoom, and it might even be faster. Um, I would, I don't, as a director, I wouldn't mind doing a couple of table reads on Zoom.
mm,
Actually, Aaron Sorkin has an interesting story about even before this Zoom thing became a thing. He was about to direct Molly's Game, and he was on a tight budget, and he couldn't get Idris Elba and this other girl, this actress, I cannot remember her name, but she's famous. He wasn't able to get them together early on to rehearse the script before they shoot it. So what he did was he asked them, away from the contract, away from any kind of payment agreement, if they didn't mind rehearsing it on I think at that time it was Skype.
mm,
We're recording rehearsing it on Skype. And because they were also both actors were in different locations, but for other things. So they did that and they rehearsed it, and then when they got to shooting, bam, they dire-diretso na. So there are advantages to these Zoom things like that. Maybe a couple of table reads, a couple of prod meetings. Um, Kumu from I'm not a big Kumu guy, but I know a
Yeah,
lot of
most of
friends
yeah.
are, and they say that it actually. I, I have to hand it to the people of Kumu. They are trying to develop some kind of theater audience there, because honestly, Kumu is the only platform that gives you an immediate response from your audience. The only platform. The fact that you can comment and give a gift.
Yeah.
That's the closest thing to a live exchange that you're ever gonna get right now, apart from actually performing in front of an audience. That's the closest thing you're gonna get, and I feel they're making an effort to build some kind of audience. Now, will that audience appear in the theater a year from now? This needs to be seen. But at least they're trying, and they said that it's also another way to like promote the show. Like, oh, this is me backstage talking, putting on my makeup, ready to go on stage. All these things to help get the word out there that theater does exist.
Yeah.
People are already thinking of it in that kind of way. Um, uh, TikTok, you've seen it probably in shoots where people are shooting. They're in a lock-in shooting a TV show, and they get together and they shoot a TikTok. I guess if it helps promote the show, if it helps get the name out there, I'm not against it. But we also need to be aware of the follow through and where do they go afterwards. I mean, it's not just putting it out; it's taking them and bringing them to the theater.
Right.
So yeah, I think it takes a good marketing brain to figure all of these things out, and when the time comes that we can come back, incorporate them to our advantage.
Oh, sorry, I don't really don't mind. I just thought of a certain question now, specific to Atlantis actually, because I know like Atlantis, you guys are one of the more secretive, I guess, of the companies when it comes to your because your materials are mostly copyright. It's IP, intellectual property. So I know you guys are more strict about what behind the scenes stuff can be shown because you have licensing contacts. How
Yeah.
do you balance that and the with social media now, the digital landscape where you have to promote stuff and behind the scenes stuff is more
To be honest with you, we're not backstage photos and stuff are not illegal.
hmm,
They're not illegal. There are just some companies that are a bit more tight-fisted in that
hmm.
regard. Uh, is that the right metaphor? Isn't tight-fisted when you don't want to give money? But
Yeah, yeah.
maybe I'm using the example as you don't want to give too much backstage stuff. Maybe that's what I mean. But um, I mean, this actually, to be honest with you, I think the reason why Atlantis is so secretive, as you say, is it's not because of not so much what we put out there,
Hmm.
um, and the intellectual property rights that might get affected. It's actually the discipline. That's the reason why we're so secretive, because I'm not a 100% believer in this, but it is believed that when you're rehearsing and then you look at your phone, you're instantly taken away from the world of the rehearsal room. Um, I agree with the concentration aspect. I think acting uh, needs a certain level of absolute concentration, and social media has wreaked havoc on that concentration. You know how people can't keep still. People are watching a show and then they're on their phone at the same time. Um, so I get that part of it, but there have been times when it's a little too much already, like we're infringing on the human rights of the person checking their phone. I you know um, Now I wouldn't check a phone while I'm actually in a
Oh,
scene
right.
working.
Of course.
That's a little disrespectful. um, but I also am aware of the line between what is acceptable rehearsal practice and you know human rights violations. uh, that's the reason why actually it's secretive. It's
It's like a
actually more.
cultural.
It's more for that than it is us promoting the show. I'm not against anything that tries to get the name out there. Um, yeah.
Yeah. So, just around for any last words, since you said, as you said, being teachers, being inspirational. Any last words to inspire the viewers,
Uh,
my students?
I wish I could see your students now so I can get a
Yeah.
better understanding of need. Ultimately, I think. I mean, I just trust your questions that are hitting everything that they might ask, and I don't know how specific I was in answering them about what they'll need. Um, but God, what would be the best piece? I think I'll just go back to our jobs as teachers, Jamie. That we can the best thing that we can do as teachers is not teach you something, but light a fire in you that light the desire in you that wants to go out there and learn more. That's the best thing that we can do. And it's not hard. One of the advantages of technology is that you can Google anything and the answer will come out. So there's a plethora of things to learn. And the only thing really stopping you is you. Yeah, our job as teachers is to push you in that direction, but you got to walk it. That's you. We can't walk it for you. And whatever you do, backstage, on stage, front of house, um, just okay. Ito na. This will be probably the best thing I can say. In whatever you decide on as a creative professional, just do it to the best of your abilities. Don't shortchange it. Don't at all. Give it 100%. If you're going to be an usher, be the best freaking usher you can possibly be. If you're going to be a set designer, study it. Learn from different set designs. Be the best possible set designer you can be. My rule in life is copy until you're as good as the thing you're copying. And that's how I functioned my entire life. I never had formal education in any of this. But I have a lot of good teachers on YouTube that I've seen. Um, yeah, copy, steal like an artist. Don't steal. God, I'm hitting like so many last words because it's just kind of jumping from one thing to
Yeah.
another.
I do too. Yeah.
Steal like an artist. And by that is you don't just copy it, you understand the method that you're
Mm.
stealing. You have to understand the methodology and how they got to that outcome. That's stealing properly. Don't steal just the effect.
Right.
But I'm going to go back to the second thing I've always said. Just do it to the best of your abilities. Give it everything you've got. Everything. If you think you've given it everything, you probably haven't, and you can give it pa some more. Just do it well. Just do it well. I respect anybody who plays by their own rules and will give 100% at anything they choose to do. Just do it well to the best of your abilities.
Right. Is there anything? So we'll do it the talk show mode. Is there anything you want to plug? Anything you want to promote? Like,
Well, okay. On June, I have to remember the dates. On June 17, 24, no, July 17, 24, and 31, will be Mike Theater Company, Cast, company of actors in Streamline Theater, in collaboration with Stages Sessions and Menez Media and Theater Actors Guild. Yeah, it's many people involved. We're coming out with a I don't think it first. There are many people that have come out with online shows,
mm,
but we might be one of the first people to come out with an actual licensed foreign material play. So I guess to cut it short, we're gonna stream a play that we're recording. Um, it's not a live. It's not gonna be live streamed. We're shooting it, but trying to observe as much as the live components as possible. We're
mm,
trying to shoot it 90 minutes straight with
mm.
as minimal cuts as possible to get the live experience through and through. Um, it's a play called Lemons, 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 Lemons by Sam Steiner. It's starring Gabby Padilla, from people who don't know or may not know her. She's on Netflix. She's a theater actor. And me, it's just the two of us. I'm also directing it alongside Benjamin Jimenez, who's directing it from the camera angle. So he's my eyes out. While I'm in the scene, I won't be able to see what the cameras look like. So that's his department. And basically, and we're gonna release it on July 17, 24, 31 on Ticket to Me. At 7 p.m. It'll be available for 24 hours. And the whole point, the play is about a relationship between Oliver and Bernadette. And there, for some reason in their universe, a law has been passed that restricts the amount of words you can say.
Oh.
So you're all limited to 140 words a day, almost a tweet, or well, a little more than a tweet. I think a tweet is 140 characters.
Yeah.
And it's 140 words a day. And the timeline jumps. It's not chronological. It jumps pre-word law and post-word law, and how a relationship, an intimate relationship like that, manages with your communication being limited, and how they deal, how they find ways around the law, how much of a burden the law is on them, or how liberating it is on them. So it deals a lot with how we talk to each other, especially in this day and age of social media. And we tend to take for granted that people are just a messenger away, but are we really connecting? Are we really communicating what we need to say? So it's all about, the play is all about stuff like that. And we're putting it out on July 17, 24, 31.
Oh.
Tickets available on Ticket to Me.
All right. I'll get the link from you. So I'll place the link in the description of this video, and I'll send it out to my students. And I'm definitely gonna watch.
30 pa. So depending on when this is gonna come out.
Yeah. So that's it. Teacher Nels, thank you so much. Wait, I'll just stop recording. So thank you so much.